Mr. Chairman, Senator Sessions, I want to congratulate you on making it through a lengthy hearing and performing admirably. And I think your performance today has reassured this committee and even more importantly, has given comfort to the American people that you will be an Attorney General who will faithfully apply the law without partiality, without partisan lens, but with fidelity to the Constitution and the laws of the United States. I also want to do something I don't do very often, which is I want to commend the Democrats on this committee for, I think, showing admirable restraint. At the beginning of this hearing, I had concerns that it would turn ugly with accusations that don't belong in this hearing. And I think my friends on the Democratic side of the aisle have largely restrained from going down that road. I think that was the right decision to make, but I commend them for that. You know, I would note that in the recesses of the internet and in some of the groups that are speaking on this nomination, and indeed in the view of some of the protesters who have made their voices heard today, there have been racial charges raised, and indeed some of the protesters have chanted KKK. And you and I have both talked about this a number of times. That is one of the easiest charges for someone to make when they don't have an argument on the merits, when they don't have the facts behind them. And it is a particularly hurtful argument that can be directed at someone, particularly when it's countered by the facts. And what I want to focus on principally in this round is spending a little bit of time highlighting an aspect of your record, which is your involvement in the prosecution of Henry Hayes, a member of the Ku Klux Klan, because I suspect it is something that very few people watching this hearing have ever heard of. And it is striking and I think highly revealing. So I'd like to just walk through some of the facts. I know you're very familiar with them, but I suspect some of the folks at home watching this hearing may not be. In 1981, in Mobile, Alabama, the Ku Klux Klan ordered the murder of a random African-American man, Michael Duncan. KKK members Henry Hayes and James Tiger Knowles abducted 19-year-old African-American Michael Duncan. They beat him, they strangled him, they cut his throat, and they hung him from a tree. Absolutely shameful and disgraceful. You were U.S. Attorney at the time. Your office, along with the FBI, along with the local district attorney, investigated the murder. Department of Justice attorneys Barry Kowalski and Burt Glenn worked on the case. When asked about your work on this case, Mr. Glenn testified that, quote, during the entire course of the investigations, he, meaning Sessions, has provided unqualified support and cooperation to us, and independently as an individual who absolutely wanted to see that crime solved and prosecuted. Is that accurate, Senator Sessions?
I think it is, yes. That's exactly what I intended to do. It actually occurred before I became United States Attorney. Wrong group of people had been indicted in state court that complicated matters. The case was not making the kind of progress it needed to make, and so we had a discussion. And we invited the Civil Rights Division attorneys, Burt Glenn and Barry Kowalski, both of which were exceptionally fine, and along with Assistant Thomas Figures in my office, broke that case, and I thought they deserve a great deal of credit. But I was with them. I was in the grand jury with them. I called the grand jury at their convenience whenever they wanted to come to the state, actually used and impaneled a special grand jury so they could be called when they desired it. It had already been called for another special purpose, but we added that to their purpose, and so they had the flexibility, and it was I thought, a brilliantly conducted investigation. I guess Barry Kowalski was the lead attorney in it.
Now, Bobby Eddy, who's the chief investigator for the Mobile County District Attorney's Office, he testified, quote, without his, meaning Sessions' cooperation, the state could not have proceeded against Henry Hayes on the capital murder charge. Chris Galanos, who's the Mobile County District Attorney in 1981, stated, quote, we needed some horsepower which the feds, through Jeff Sessions, provided. Specifically, we needed the investigative power of the FBI and the power of the federal grand jury. I reached out to him, Sessions, and he responded, quote, "Tell me what you need and you'll have it." And indeed, your office prosecuted Hayes' accomplice in federal court where he pleaded guilty. And Mr. Eddy testified that Tiger Knowles, the accomplice, pled guilty on a civil rights violation and received a life sentence, the highest sentence he could receive under federal law, in federal prison. And he continued to say Henry Hayes was tried in state court by Mr. Galanos' office and found guilty and sentenced to die in the electric chair. And this made Hayes the first white man executed in Alabama for murdering a black person since 1913. When you were the Attorney General of Alabama, you later argued to uphold Hayes' death penalty. And in 1997, 5 months after you joined this body as a senator, Hayes died in Alabama's electric chair. And I would note, not only that, not only did you assist in the prosecution of the face of evil, a Ku Klux Klan murderer who saw ultimate justice, but as it so happened, you also prosecuted Hayes' father, KKK Grand Titan Benny Jack Hayes, who ordered his son to kill an African American, and you prosecuted him for attempting to defraud his home insurer in order to collect money to pay for his son's legal defense. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And beyond that, your office cooperated with Morris Dees and the Southern Poverty Law Center to bring a civil suit against the KKK. And Mr. Galanos explained, quote, "After the criminal cases were over, the Southern Poverty Law Center took the evidence we had developed and gave to them, and they sued civilly and got a $7 million verdict on behalf of Ms. Donald. And the $7 million civil judgment against the KKK in Alabama bankrupted the Klan, leading to its demise in the state." Is that correct?
That's essentially correct, yes. In fact, they sold the Klan headquarters to help satisfy the judgment.
Well, I would say, Senator Sessions, it's easy for people reading things on the internet to believe whatever's raised and passions get hot. And I know the protesters who stand up and chant KKK, they in all likelihood believe what they're saying because they're reading and being encouraged on the internet. But I have not seen any appointee to the cabinet, Democrat or Republican, who has a record like you do of prosecuting Klansmen, putting them on death row, bankrupting them and putting them out of business, and doing so as you had. I'll tell you, I admire your doing so, and I'll issue a challenge to our friends in the news media. I noticed every time a protester jumped up, all the photographers took pictures of the protesters. I suspect we're going to see them in all the papers. I would encourage the news media, cover this story. Tell the story on the 6 o'clock news about Jeff Sessions helping prosecute a Klansman who had murdered an innocent African-American man and putting him on death row and helping bankrupt the Klan in Alabama. That's a story that needs to be told. And Senator Sessions, I thank you for your record. I thank you for your service.
Thank you, Senator Cruz. And I would say it has been very disappointing and painful to have it suggested I think the Klan was okay when we did everything possible to destroy and defeat and prosecute the Klan members who were involved in this crime. And it was a good joint effort. I was supportive of it every step of the way, and some great lawyers worked very hard on it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.